Sensory disturbances are things that will affect almost all of us at some point in our life if they're not already having an impact. And you'd be amazed at how many people I see on a weekly basis that have no idea that they have sensory disturbances that are already affecting them. So today we're going to talk about how that's going to impact your health, and we're going to talk about what you could do to minimize that. I'm Dr. Jeff Cumro, and over the past 15 years, I've had the pleasure of working with thousands of people, helping them optimize brain function, helping them optimize their body function, and then supply the energy to those areas so that they get the expected result that they're looking for. So when we look at sensory disturbance, there are a lot of different varieties of this. Like the simple one would be, somebody who goes to school and they realize after a couple of months of not getting good grades that they can't see the board, right? Their parents finally figure out that they can't see right. That would be considered a sensory disturbance. That affects people. Hearing loss is something that's very common as we get older. The visual loss is something that's common as we get older. Not necessarily just using the readers, but also having like cataracts and different things like that that change the way that our eyes work together, and that throws us off. Pain, we have numbness and tingling. We have all of these different things that start to stack in. And this is, in some people, this is common. If we see autism, ADHD, different things like that, they struggle with the feeling of their body anyway, that interoception, the feeling of their body and how it moves. They don't do as well with that. And there is correlation with brain function being linked to those, right? So the more sensory disturbance you have, the more impact we see on the brain. So let's just take a couple examples here today, and we're going to look at how this impacts the brain. So I just read a recent study, and it was talking about ultimately how if they lengthen the legs of insects, then the insects will overshoot a target. Whereas with humans, if they lengthen their leg length, like through stilts, for example, then they undershoot the target. So it totally throws off their sense, because they're used to moving at whatever height you are. You're used to moving that size of leg or that size of arm or whatever it may be. And there are different things that you can look at on this. Have you ever seen a dog wear the little boots? They've got the little boots for dogs or whatever, and they throw those things on, and they're walking they're picking up their legs and walking all goofy. And it's something that is really actually a pretty cool representation of how important sensation is for your brain function. If we don't have that proper sensation, it throws everything off and we move funny. Same thing happens if you take, so imagine that, what happened there? There we go. Let's get back to where we need it. All right, so imagine that you have a bowl and then you have a normal sized spoon. So that's your spoon. It's easy for you to eat, and you could close your eyes and you could still hit your mouth, right? Have you ever taken a spoon that is longer than what you normally use and tried to do the same thing? It totally throws you off, right? So if this is your bowl, you take a spoon that looks like this and you try and hit your mouth, it's difficult because you're clear out here trying to actually maneuver it to where you can actually get the food to your mouth. It's much, much more difficult. And this is something that we fight in different ways, right? And this is, it's forces that we're put up against every day, is moving things that we haven't really moved before, and sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't go well. Most of the time we have some sort of representation to apply to that, and when we do, we succeed in it. If we don't, if you pick up an awkward box, it's difficult, right? Same type of stuff. But all of this comes back to the importance of your body, right? So when you pick up that awkward box, it's the same as getting a weird representation from your body. So if you have chronic pain or consistent pain, you have an altered sense of sense. I guess that's a weird way of putting it, but your sensation is altered in your body. You don't feel things the way that you really should, because you shouldn't be in pain all the time, right? If you have numbness, tingling, anything like that, so if you have any kind of radicular nerve pain, or if you have diabetes and you're losing feeling in your feet, in your hands, different things like that, those would be instances of this. If those eyes aren't moving correctly and you can't get them right onto the same target, then that throws things off. If one eye is weak and it has to sit there and wobble, cataracts are something that can do this. Changes in eyesight, astigmatism, different things like that can all play a role in this. It gives you that altered sense of where you're at in space. That can show up, if you're playing baseball, football, anything like that. When somebody throws you a ball, it's difficult to judge the speed if you can't get both eyes onto it. So sometimes you totally miss the ball. You put your hand out and totally miss the ball. Sometimes it takes longer for it to get there, so it hits when you're not expecting, whether it's faster or slower than what you expect it to be. But all of those things are our perception, and that perception is massively important. And that's something that a lot of people take for granted, right? They say, okay, well, my pain is gone, then I don't need anything done. But the pain is not the problem. The change in proprioception, that change in feeling, is the actual problem. Because if we don't have proper feeling in there, we're going to move in ways that are not conducive to staying, how do I put this? Staying stable, I guess, would be the best way to put it. Because all of those, what happens in arthritis? Say you have your vertebrae here, and you got them stacked up, and they're somewhat in the line that they're supposed to be, right? You get a couple of them in there, and this takes out the curve, but we have them all in a good alignment. When we start seeing somebody with arthritis, we might have one vertebrae that's over here like this. We might have one that tilts back a little bit like this, and then we might have another one that's in line. So the top one and the bottom one are still the same line, but you can see what changes here. Instead of having everything lined up throughout the front, you change this. Now what does that do? It puts a lot of pressure here. It puts a lot of pressure here. It puts a lot of pressure through both discs, and then you start moving differently. But it's not just the movement that you're changing. You're also changing the ability to decrease the stresses that you have every time you take a step, every time you run, every time you jump, anything like that. So all that stress is being driven right up into that system, which further deteriorates this. It further deteriorates this. It further beats up these discs. And we see that breakdown process. And as this gets worse and worse, it continues to speed up, right? It compounds over time. And this is ultimately the problem. It's not the pain, it's this. It's the movement that is the issue. So what do we need to do? There are a few things that we need to do. Building strength is going to be a part of this. But that strength has to have stability with it. If we don't have stability with the strength, then again, you're going to be building strength, but it's going to be things that are going to be putting forces in weird places. So we have to have that stability, and when we have that stability, we keep everything in the line that it's supposed to be in. And that ultimately is the goal of things. And that's ultimately what chiropractic care does. We keep those things moving the way that they're supposed to. We keep that stabilization firing the way that it's supposed to. We fire that proprioception, that sensation, that feeling of sensation up to your brain, and it gives you an accurate representation of where you're actually at, so you continue to move more efficiently. Now, you've probably heard somebody say, I've been in a lot of pain in my life, so my pain tolerance is really high, right? That's not a good thing. It's not a good thing, because they've been in a lot of pain and they've acclimated to it. We are very, very good at acclimating to whatever environment we're put in. That's why we're so good at surviving different scenarios, right? But that's not one that you want to survive, or it's not one that you want to acclimate to. Obviously, you want to survive. But you don't want to acclimate to that, because if you acclimate to that, that's where you start having this breakdown. And sooner or later, you get to the point where you can't acclimate, and you're in chronic pain, you're in chronic dysfunction, and that affects your mental health. It affects your physical health. It affects everything about your life. It affects relationships, all of that good stuff. So that is where chiropractic care comes in, and it basically keeps you here instead of moving you toward here. Now, I read a study yesterday that was talking about how at the age of 49 years of age, 60% of women and 80% of men have arthritis in their neck already. By 30 to 35, most of them have disc changes in their neck. Their neck doesn't necessarily take as much stress as the lower back. And that study was from 2005, so it doesn't consider, everything that we do this now. We have the cell phone down here. We have the Kindle reader or whatever else you use down here. And that puts our head in an even worse position. And we continue to break that down even faster. And the next proprioception, that feeling, that sensation of feeling from the neck, is even more important because you have more nerves up here. So it gives your brain a little bit better idea of where you're at in space. Now, the lower back is probably going to take more abuse, and I would guess that the numbers on the lower back are similar, if not higher. And the reason for that is there's so much more force on the lower back than there is on the neck. You know, you've got your S curve here. This up here doesn't have nearly as much weight on it. This down here has tons of weight on it. So your lower back probably has more degeneration than your neck. That's scary to think about. So by the time we're 50 years of age, which not that old, right? Really, I wouldn't consider it old at all, because life expectancy is 77, 80. I mean, that's another 30 years after that. So that's really not old at all, but we've already got degeneration in those areas. That's scary to think about. So putting in the time to build stability, putting in time to build that strength, and then maintaining everything throughout life with chiropractic care is important. And I know you're going to say I'm biased. I am. There's no way that I can say that I'm not biased. But that is what chiropractic care is. And the number of people that we're seeing with sensory issues today, whether that's ADHD, whether that's autism, whether it's autoimmunity, whether it's people who have numbness, whether it's people that have pain, whether it's people that have visual disturbance or hearing disturbance or anything like that, chiropractic care can help to change or at least maintain that proprioception. That proprioception that's lost doesn't have to be lost forever. It's things that can be gained back with proper treatment. So when we start doing that, not only does our physical health change, but so does our mental health, so does our relationship, so does our learning abilities, so do all of these other things that are associated with our lives. And that ultimately is the reason that I'm so excited about chiropractic. So if you have questions, obviously drop them in the comments. I love and appreciate all you guys. I know that your attention is your most valuable resource, and I appreciate you spending some of it with me. If you find this helpful, please like or subscribe. It gives me information on what I can share more of with you to help you get that next step in life and in health. So with that, I appreciate you guys, and I will catch you on next week's video.